What's up everybody, Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week, but before I get into the news, I first want to mention I'll be doing my usual weekly live stream, but this week I'll be doing it on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, just so we don't have any conflicts with Father's Day activities on Sunday there. But hope you can all join. It's always a great time hanging out and talking cars with all of you. But getting into the news here this week, the first news story is that BMW has revealed the refresh for the M2 for 2025 here, and the main changes are under the hood. So the manual version continues, thankfully, which is great, and even gets 20 more horsepower than before, now up to 473 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. This drops the 0 to 60 time by 0.1 second, which is now a 4.1 second 0 to 60. The automatic M2 gets the same horsepower bump, but also gets a bump in torque to 443 pound-feet of torque now, which also improves its 0 to 60 time by 0.1 second, now at 3.9 seconds for that one. They also tweaked the throttle response for more rapid reactions. Otherwise, on the outside, there's now a silver wheel option, but ironically, you now can't get bright exhaust tips. They're only available in black as standard now. The badging also gets slight tweaks, but otherwise it looks the same. They did add a bunch of new colors, though, including a Java Green, Voodoo Blue, Twilight Purple, Sao Paulo Yellow, and Vegas Red, and Portimao Blue, and Skyscraper Gray, although all the pictures they took were just in this boring shade of silver or gray and none of those fun colors. But inside you get a new flat bottom wheel, new air vents that remove more buttons, and the seats can now get red highlights. It also gets the same new iDrive 8.5 software that all 2025 BMWs have been getting. And prices go up by $1,880 over last year, but still starting at a pretty reasonable $66,075, including destination. And they should begin arriving at dealers in August. Also, the regular 2 Series gets its own little refresh. Most of the same kind of stuff carries over here, but another minor refresh here. You get those extra paint options, many of the same ones, including the previously M2 exclusive Zandervoort Blue, which they unfortunately haven't shown here once again. But there's also new placements of M badges now, like in the lower grille there, and then the front fender. Inside, they get that new steering wheel and vent design with less buttons and iDrive 8.5. There's also a new red interior option and 2 new open pore wood trims. The 230i and M240i are mechanically unchanged, so no bumps like you get on the M2 there, but they get a smaller price bump, just $580 more, and $180 of that is just due to it being a bigger destination fee than before. So the 230i starts at $40,375, and the M240i now starts at $51,275, and I'm guessing they should also start showing up sometime later this summer. BMW has also teased the M5 one last time, showing off the illuminated grille here and saying that it's almost reveal time and that the next generation BMW M5 is finishing testing and coming soon. But this still doesn't say exactly when. So I believe there was rumors that production was supposed to start in July. So, I mean, they should be unveiling this thing any day now, so we will see. But, what we can see so far is that the grille thankfully doesn't follow the M3. Sticks to a wider grill. Still it's gonna be a big grill, but at least it's not the little narrow pig nose thing like we have on the M3. But anyway, interesting to see that. For some unofficial BMW news here this week, an image of the 2025 X3 was accidentally leaked out here thanks to a post on Instagram that has since been taken down. But of course, everyone screen grabbed it before that happened, and so we only have one shot there, but it clearly shows off the front and the sides with cool looking lights, but a new crisscross grille design that we haven't seen before. And some people are really hating on it, but honestly, compared to the other polarizing BMW designs recently, I have no problems with this. I think it actually looks pretty good, to be completely honest, and I would much rather have the crisscross thing than have a grille that goes all the way down to the pavement. So this works for me, but let me know what you think about it in the comments below. You can also see the sides are a little flatter than before there, and this one seems to be either an electric one or a plug-in hybrid version because of the charge port there on the front fender. You can also see there's like the flush door handles and all that, and there's no info on when the full reveal of this is going to happen, but I'm guessing it'll be fairly soon, and so stay tuned for that, probably sometime this summer as well. Moving on here, last week we got a teaser of the Mark 8.5 Volkswagen Golf R, and this week we get an even clearer little look at the front end there without camo for the first time, along with a very important spec, the horsepower that it's going to make. So Volkswagen revealed on their Facebook page, actually, that it'll match the Golf R 333 edition from last year, meaning 333 metric horsepower, which equals about about 329 horsepower here in the States, assuming we get that same bump in power. So this announcement, was just about the German version, I believe. So if we do get it here in the States, so that'll be a nice jump from the 315 horsepower that the Golf R makes currently. And I mean, it's not a huge improvement, but an improvement nonetheless. And so I appreciate it. And the European reveal should happen, I'm guessing, pretty soon, but there's no reveal date for this one either. But Volkswagen also, for the US, did also announce recently here this week that the Jetta and the Taos will be getting refreshes for 2025, but didn't say exactly what they'll be getting. Just that the Jettas, including the GLI, they mentioned in the press release. So GLI is continuing, which is great, but including GLI, they'll be unveiled late this quarter, which means they're going to be revealed here this month, because the end of the quarter is in the end of June here. So I don't know, that one they should have just like revealed, already. But anyway, so that's coming very, very soon. And, also just glad to see they're continuing to support the Jetta and the GLI in particular with another refresh. We just got one, I believe, in 2022, getting another one here for 25, and good to see that. And they say the Taos will debut in late Q3 of this year, so sometime this fall most likely. And then the next gen Tiguan we've already seen in Europe, but they said that that's going to be coming here at some point this year as well, but didn't give us a specific window for that one just yet, which means most likely we're talking end of year for this next gen Tiguan. But again, we've already seen it. It'll be a longer wheelbase version here for the States, but same kind of thing, as that European one. So anyway, but interesting to get those updates. In some other small car news here, Mini has revealed the gas-powered version of the four-door Cooper this week, which gets all the same mechanical stuff as the two-door gas version, just with two more doors, of course, and a back seat that they say is noticeably wider than the last generation inside. The Cooper S version will arrive around September and start at $34,195, including destination, and a lower-priced Cooper C version will come in January of 2025 with less horsepower, but using that same motor, which is the 2-liter there in the S version. And so it'll be interesting to see how much they downgrade the power on that one. But anyway, cool to see that the four doors are coming as well. A European hatch that unfortunately we aren't getting here in the States or in North America at all is the new Alpine A290. So it's an electric one, and it does 177 horsepower in the lower trims and then 215 horsepower in the performance and GTS trims, and they all do 221 pound-feet of torque. It can make peak power for 10 seconds with an overtake button on the steering wheel, and it does 0 to 62 mile per hour in 6.4 seconds. And despite being electric, it weighs just 3,261 pounds and seems pretty faithful to the hot hatch formula, not going for big horsepower like we saw with Ioniq 5N or something. It's front-wheel drive, it's about the same horsepower as a normal GTI, same kind of 0 to 60 and stuff, just electric. I think this is really the way to do it. You don't have to have a zillion horsepower. But anyway, it runs a 52 kilowatt hour battery for 236 miles of range on the easier WLTP test cycle, but can only charge at a peak of 100 kilowatts. But with the small pack, that still means a 15% to 80% charge in just 30 minutes. Inside, it gets heated sports seats and double 10-inch screens and the sporty flair there. And there's no pricing yet, but it's based on the same platform as the Renault 5, which starts at 30,000 euros or roughly $32,400, which seems really reasonable. So if this isn't much more expensive, even, GTIs can easily, hit what, like $40,000 now. So, even if it's 40 grand, I think that would be still totally cool. And I'd love to see them offer that here. Now, Alpine did say they are going to come to the States. That was something they announced, I think, a few months back now. But they were planning on only coming back, or starting at least here in the US, with some larger SUVs and higher end stuff. Which, everyone's just burned out on that kind of stuff, especially SUVs, So I feel like something like this could really be a fun way to enter the market. You get some of the enthusiasts, diehard people that might, be more open to a new brand versus trying to compete in these massive segments. Why not go into a segment that doesn't really have many options here in the States? I'm sure that's because there's less demand, but still, I think, it's four doors and all that. I could be a little more practical than like a 500e Abarth that's coming, things like that. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see if they decide to bring this one here eventually or not. But Yeah, cool for those of you in Europe that are going to be getting those. Jeep also revealed more details about their future product plans here during an investor presentation and media roundtable this past week. So just a few weeks ago, I talked about how they promised a $25,000 electric Jeep that was coming soon, supposedly, according to the CEO. And this week they revealed that it'll be a next generation Renegade, and it'll be using lithium iron phosphate batteries to keep costs down, and that the battery will have to be made in North America in order to qualify for tax credits, which means we're most likely talking about a $32,500 vehicle that is then knocked down to $25,000 with those tax credits. So that makes it a little less impressive. I mean, it's still going to be very welcome and very great, but I mean, that basically means they just have to undercut the Chevy Equinox EV by $2,500, which doesn't seem like an enormous undertaking. And I mean, the Equinox is doing over 300 miles of range for the front-wheel drive version. So if this lithium iron phosphate, typically those batteries have less power density. So I hate to say it and call it already. We'll have to wait and see what happens. But this Renegade already seems like, if it's only $2,500 less than an Equinox EV, does way less range and potentially slower charging and stuff as well. This might be an uphill battle for them. I mean, it'll be great to see another option for people who don't want an Equinox EV for whatever reason, whether it's lack of CarPlay or whatever. But, just, I don't know. We will see how this plays out. Hopefully they find some way to differentiate it and make it a little more appealing. But anyway, another surprise here is that they announced that the Jeep Compass will be continuing on until around 2027, when it also gets a new generation. So one, it's kind of surprising. It seems like Compass will stick around until 2027 in its current form, which is already kind of dated. But that's fine, and, it's just nice that it'll be getting a next-generation version. They also, are talking about the return of the Cherokee, which they didn't name it. They just said, another, mid-sized, compact kind of SUV thing. But, they showed us a shadowy image of what's coming next year at the presentation for the Wagoneer S a couple weeks ago. And it's, he's like, you can all probably guess what this will be, which makes me think, okay, he's talking about Cherokee. But anyway, so we already knew that, that was coming, but that was another thing they reiterated, that a vehicle of that size is coming. And they also said that by 2027, they'll have a total of 5 plug-in hybrids, a range extender model, which will be the Wagoneer, which we already talked about again a couple weeks ago. That's going to get a 4xe version. It's going to use the Ram Charger setup. And then they also said they're going to have 6 EVs by 2027. So the 5 plug-in hybrids that they mentioned here would be Wrangler and Gladiator, which are already, the Gladiator's coming, I think, next year. They said the Wrangler's already out, Grand Cherokee's already out, and then Grand Cherokee L most likely is going to have to get the 4xe version as well. So that makes 4 if they consider that a separate model. Plus Cherokee, that's been reported to get a plug-in hybrid version as well. So that's 5 there. But if the Grand Cherokee L isn't separate, I would assume also the Compass is going to be a plug-in hybrid. I have a hard time believing anything going forward is going to be straight gas from Jeep, especially by 2027. But we'll see. I mean, that's a possibility as well. But either way, those are probably the ones you can expect there as far as the plug-in hybrids. As far as the EVs, we have the Wagoneer S, the Recon that's coming soon here later this year, and the Renegade EV, been announced already. So for the other 3 here, I could easily see Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer, since they're already getting the Ram Charger set up. They also could get the Ram Rev set up and retrofit that from the Ram 1500 Rev. And so that would be 2 more EVs there if they put it in both Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer. The last one will probably be an electric version of the Cherokee, most likely, since, again, that's going to be using these STLA platforms that have that flexibility of plug-in hybrid and electric, so similar to what we're seeing with the other new stuff coming from Stellantis. So that's probably what all we can expect there from Jeep, for the next 3 or 4 years here. So if you're a Jeep fan, planning your next purchase, now you have a pretty clear roadmap of what to expect, and hopefully that helps some of you maybe with your planning. Rivian has revealed the refreshed 2025 R1T and R1S this week, and on the outside it's basically unchanged with this new aero wheel that obviously improves the aerodynamics and the efficiency. That's really the biggest visual change, honestly, along with a couple new wheel options. The headlights are also slightly tweaked and have better adaptive beams, they say, that reduce glare for oncoming vehicles. And they made the old vehicle's fog lights obsolete, so now in that place you now have turn signals there, which seems like a downgrade from the old setup where I think, those vertical parts used to turn orange for the turn signals, which I think is cooler than a little bar at the bottom. But anyway, those vertical parts now can show charging progress, though, which is cool. Inside, it gets a more responsive infotainment system, but it annoyingly still doesn't have Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, which continues to put Rivian at a disadvantage, in my opinion, for roughly the 50% of car buyers, according to polls, that considered CarPlay or Android Auto a requirement for their next purchase. It's also odd because they improved the stereo thanks to an integration of spatial audio with Dolby Atmos that Rivian worked with Apple Music on. So they're already working with Apple. It comes down to the data. I think they just don't want to give up the data, but I guess they don't have to give it up with the spatial audio integration here, I guess. But even that still requires the Rivian to have an active internet connection with Rivian Connect Plus. That's $15 a month. This also could potentially be viewed as maybe a hopeful promise that CarPlay will come someday. If they're working with Apple, we have the data hotspot here to do the Wi-Fi kind of thing, to do the CarPlay wirelessly and all that. So, there's a potential there. I just don't know, if that's something they're going to make that jump or not. But anyway, there's also higher resolution cameras and new materials inside, along with a glass roof that's now electrochromic to cut out the sun when you don't want it. The stuff you can't see is where the Rivian gets the biggest changes, though, with them claiming over 60% of the software and hardware underneath has been redone for better efficiency, less weight and cost, and easier repairs. And so for starters, the whole electrical system has been redesigned for 10 times faster processing, while cutting out 44 pounds of wiring and providing a quicker reacting on-demand all-wheel drive system. And the 3 battery packs are also new and all should do better in the winter, thanks to now there being a new heat pump that's standard as well. So the base battery is now a lithium iron phosphate pack, like has been reported just a few weeks ago, that's less expensive to produce, but does the same 270 miles of range as the old base battery, which is, a nice improvement that they were able to, have a less power dense battery and still do the same range. That definitely speaks to the better aero efficiency, better efficiency of the motors and all that, which is great. The large and max battery packs are more power dense than before, but Rivian won't say specifics for those battery sizes. They just quote range figures of 330 miles for the large battery and 410 miles for the max pack in the R1S and up to 420 miles in the R1T. The base one charges at 200 kilowatts, with the bigger one doing 220 kilowatts, which is solid times for both of those there. And the motors are new in-house designs, and there's more options there as well. So first, the regular dual motor version now does 553 horsepower and 610 pound-feet of torque, along with a 4.5 seconds 0 to 60 time, which is already plenty fast enough for that base one. Then the performance variant goes up to 665 horsepower and 829 pound-feet of torque, plus a 3.4 seconds 0 to 60 time for that one. Again, just with dual motors, already up under 3.5 seconds for that 0 to 60. But there's now a new tri-motor setup for the first time that does 850 horsepower and 1,103 pound-feet of torque when in launch mode, which is even higher than the old quad motor setup. So really leapfrogging there with these new motor designs. And that one does a 2.9 seconds 0 to 60 time. And then the new quad motor setup, there is a new quad motor one here. That is even crazier with 1,025 horsepower and 1,198 pound-feet of torque. Almost 1,200 pound-feet of torque in this thing. It puts up a 0 to 60 time under 2.5 seconds, Rivian claims, in perfect conditions, and a quarter-mile time happens in just 10.5 seconds. And also a burst from 60 mile per hour to 80 mile per hour takes just 1.5 seconds. Imagine going from 60 to 80 in like one, and then you're done. Like, that's it. Like, it's like so fast. Honestly, that's the time that impresses me the most. I mean, 0 to 60 is cool and all that, but 60 to 80 in 1.5 seconds is a really impressive leap. Anyway, you also have the ability now to have more fun off-road thanks to a new rally mode that allows you to slide the back end around more. And launch editions are already on sale, and pricing starts at $69,900 for the R1T and $75,900 for the R1S. There's no pricing for the quad motor version just yet, so I guess that's coming a little bit later here. But the tri-motor R1S, the top one currently, starts at $105,900. Moving on here for another bonkers car here, the 2025 Mustang GTD. We got to look at its interior and more info on 3 packages that it's going to be getting here when people order these at some point here in the next year or so. But first, the interior. It's clear that the interior wasn't the focal point here, because aside from a couple new buttons and 3D printed titanium shift paddles, the only other change here is new upholstery for the ordinary Recaro seats that have been available on even like EcoBoost since 2015. And yeah, I mean, this thing is $325,000 to start. you would think, especially being something so hardcore as this, they would have had a unique seat instead of phoning it in with Recaros that are 10 years old. Anyway, you can dress it up a little bit with a carbon series package that gives you some carbon fiber trim inside, along with leaving the carbon fiber exposed on the roof and parts of the hood and trunk there. But on the inside, the only really special thing is the cool rear suspension window where the back seat used to be that reminds you that you're not in an ordinary Mustang. So there's also a performance package you can add on for even more money that gives you the front canards and splitter along with the underbody flaps and the big rear wing with its drag reduction mode, which I thought were all part of the GTD in general. Apparently you have to then pay extra to have, a lot of this cool tech. So I'm very curious now to see what a base GTD looks like. I'm sure everyone's going to check all the boxes because, we're talking about people willing to spend $325,000 on a Mustang. There's no rationale to the ordering there, but it's surprising that they're nickel and diming people with extra packages for that stuff. But anyway, there's also a lightweight package that gives you magnesium wheels and removes some sound deadening, and it's labeled at 2025. That gives us a better idea now of exactly when to expect this, which I guess means anytime in the next year and a half roughly. But hopefully we'll, start to see more of these, driving and actually being built here relatively soon. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, very interesting to see that. And if you're a fan of the Ferrari V12 like I am, my favorite motor currently in production, you'll be happy to know that Ferrari's global marketing director recently told carexpert.com.au that we will produce naturally aspirated V12s until the law no longer allows us to. And added that they could even keep them around beyond 2035, which is when the EU cutoff currently is still scheduled to happen for gas-powered vehicles here. But if synthetic fuels, if that loophole remains, which is currently available, that for 2035 and beyond, you can still have gas-powered stuff, but it has to use synthetic fuel. If assuming we're in a world where that is relatively readily available, that is something they could also have here. They're saying, which I'm guessing at that point it would still just be for the hyper limited, one-off stuff, things like that would maybe continue with the V12 there. But anyway, they also said, though, they are still working on an EV and that they still, at least currently, the plan is to have EVs be 40% of sales by 2030. Again, they could easily roll that back like many other companies have been doing, so we'll see. But anyway, regardless, it sounds like the V12 isn't going anywhere anytime soon from Ferrari, which is great to hear because there was concerns that, the A12 is going to be the last one. And there was talks that, it would go hybridized to do this, that, and the other and wouldn't have a V12 anymore. They said they wanted to stay true to their roots here, and that V12 is really core to the company, and so glad to hear that it's going to be going on here for at least another 11 years, if not longer, so great to hear that. McLaren CEO talked with Road and Track recently about some of their projects that they're working on and revealed that they have an electric supercar in development that will hopefully only weigh about the same as the Artura, meaning around 3,300 pounds. And he said, for me, a supercar that weighs 2 tons is no supercar, which seems to be a dig at stuff like the Rimac Nevera and others that weigh over 5,000 pounds. He didn't provide any other details for this electric supercar other than just saying that lateral performance will be a bigger focus than it is on other EV hypercars that he says only really focus on a longitudinal acceleration, and that's pretty much it. He also talked a little more about the coming McLaren SUV that we've been hearing about a bunch, and he confirmed that they are working on something like that, but he won't call it an SUV still, instead calling it a shared performance vehicle because you can share the experience of a McLaren with more than one other person. So anyway, he revealed that it'll be a plug-in hybrid most likely. They didn't seem like that's been nailed down just yet, which makes me think this is still a ways off, but he said it would most likely be a plug-in hybrid, and it sounds like it could also end up being a partnership with another car company, with him saying, I think the smart way is with a technology partnership, to find a partner and create synergies, but not to lose anything which is core to McLaren and the DNA of our brand. And so part of that goal is they want to use their own powertrain, but in an existing platform from another brand. So they still want something relatively light for the segment, and they even talked about, he even mentioned here in the interview, the potential of changing structural components on someone else's platform to potentially cut out some weight there, probably swap in carbon fiber for some parts of the chassis and stuff instead, maybe, since McLaren does that a lot with their carbon fiber monocoques and stuff. But and they just want to have this, McLaren SUV would obviously have more unique goals compared to most other performance SUVs that don't really worry about weight. But McLaren CEO wouldn't discuss any other car companies that they're considering working with, but Road and Track is guessing it could be BMW since the two have worked together before, and since the XM's platform from BMW is a modular one, that it's possible they could use the plug-in hybrid stuff from the XM, put it on the XM chassis, which is a very heavy vehicle, but then if they're using the McLaren engine, one of their McLaren engines, maybe that would make it a little lighter, and then just, again, trying to cut weight wherever they can, maybe make it a little smaller than the XM, stuff like that. We'll have to see, but yeah, that's kind of Road and Track just going out on a limb saying, it could be BMW. But we'll see. And they also said that the goal would be around $400,000 for this thing if it does actually become a reality someday. And there's no word on when it could show up, though, or what their goal is even for that. But again, if they're still like, we'd like to be a plug-in hybrid, we like a platform, if they're talking about all these things in the hypothetical or like something that they're still looking for, unless he's, playing his cards close to his chest here, I think that, most likely this is still in the planning phases and still talking to people to try and figure out a way to make this thing actually happen. So I'd say give it another at least 3 to 4 years, maybe longer, even with a shared platform. But anyway, for the last news story here, Japanese electric hypercar company Aspark announced a new prototype variant of the Owl just broke the top speed record for an EV, hitting 273 miles per hour roughly. I'm saying roughly because it's, maybe half a mile per hour off or something, but basically hit 273. And so just last year, it broke records for the 1/8 mile and the 1/4 mile speeds, which I don't remember reporting on this, but it apparently does an 1/8 mile. When it hits an 1/8 mile, it's already doing 192 miles per hour. Anyone that's gone down an 1/8 mile drag strip before knows how short that is. To hit 192 in that span of time is just crazy. But also can hit a 1/4 mile. It also broke the 1/4 mile record at 198 miles per hour, but you only gain another 6 miles per hour going from an 1/8 to a 1/4, which shows you how just intensely this thing accelerates. But anyway, that's all thanks to its wild 1,980 horsepower and 1,475 pound-feet of torque. And that one already had a top speed of 260 miles per hour as well. But this new higher speed version is called the SP600 prototype, and compared to the regular Owl, of which only 50 are being made, by the way, and are already all sold out at $3 million a pop. This new one has a longer tail we can see here, along with other aerodynamic improvements, most likely, but we just get the one picture of it, basically, and that's it. So they also said it gets unique Bridgestone tires developed specifically for this car, and it'll likely lead to a production version, I'm assuming, because why else would they be doing this here? But there's no details on that yet, but congrats to them on another year of breaking records, and that sounds like a really wild ride. And I mean, that's also a pretty cool looking thing with all those curvatures it's got going on too. But anyway, lastly, I want to thank all of you that are members of the Maran Motoring Club. So we did have no new members join. A bunch of people were able to rejoin this past week as far as the gifting goes. And so I just want to give a big thank you to Kyle and MDKN, who both gifted memberships during last week's live stream and enabled many more people to rejoin here. I'm sure they were all very grateful to continue to stay in the Maran Motoring Club. Thanks for your generosity, guys, and thank you both for that generosity. I really appreciate it as well. For anyone else that'd like to join, get access to all those membership perks and all the other things you get as a member, there's always join buttons here on the video page, on the channel page, and a link in the description. But anyway, thank you all very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts and all the stuff in the comments below. Please leave a like and subscribe to keep these videos coming, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.